Okay, so can we start the webinar? Are you all able to hear me well? Can one or two guys respond in the chat? Okay, good. So then let me introduce myself and then start the webinar. So I am Subramaniam. People call me as VSM. I am the principal consultant and the Agile practice head for the QAI. Today we are conducting a webinar on Scaled Agile Framework series. We have been conducting frequently webinars on the Scaled Agile Framework. Today the topic of webinar is on roadmap for implementing the Scaled Agile Framework. So basically the focus of the webinar is to give a overview of what is the Scaled Agile Framework is all about, why it has come into existence, and what are the challenges of scaling Agile and how the Scaled Agile Framework addresses them. Then, what is the structure, artifacts. We'll just talk at a very high level, the Scaled Agile Framework, just to give an overview. Then we will get into core of the webinar. So the objective of this webinar is, when once the organizations want to get into applying or implementing Scaled Agile Framework, what is the typical steps that they need to take? Okay, if a program or an organization wants to implement the Agile Framework, what are the typical steps they need to do? Okay, so we focus on that topic today in our webinar. Okay, so so the implementation roadmap that I will be talking is based on, I can say, a lot of implementation experiences, and there are a lot of case studies. If you get into scaledagileFramework.com, in fact, the Scaled Agile Incorporation has come up with this model of implementing the Scaled Agile Framework 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is again based on the distilled knowledge of implementing multiple enterprises and multiple programs, this framework. Yes, so it's based on that, right? So let us now focus on what is this Scaled Agile Framework and why it came. How did why it came into existence? If you look from the point of view of a large product development and managing existing applications, large complex systems and other things, right? It is becoming more and more complex due to dynamic business scenarios. Okay, so responding to business needs and value delivery is becoming the key expectations and key parameters on which the success of the enterprises or the IT companies are getting measured, right? So the old method, like the old software development method, like waterfall, V life cycle model, or we had different traditional life cycle model, iterative models or prototype models, they have not kept with the pace that is required to meet these kind of business needs of software development. So Agile, which has been talked from last one to 1.5 decades, has shown the greatest promise of addressing this need of responding faster and being agile and focus on delivering value, right, as quickly as possible to meet the time to market needs. But what has happened is the agile approach is focused more in terms of meeting the needs of small teams. Okay, so if we want to again apply the same way of agile approach to large enterprises or large program and product development systems, or managing the existing large programs and large applications, you require a totally different approach, right? So the Scaled Agile Framework came into existence because of this industry need of applying or scaling Agile to enterprise as well as scaling agile into in the context of large program development. Okay, so now let us examine what are the challenges a typically team faces when they want to apply or when they want to scale the agile practices, when they want to implement across multiple teams to meet the program needs or program objectives. If that is so, let us see like what are the challenges. So what we have seen, a typical agile or a scrum team is consisting of a cross-functional team with a product manager, product owner, scrum master. Is meant for the practices are meant to effectively implement in a 7 to plus or minus 2 member team, right? So that is what we are seeing. And so basically it is an incremental and iterative approach to apply and applies inspect and adopt philosophy of developing the software and system solutions. That is what we are seeing. Okay. So when we want to apply the same agile principles, agile practices and agile methods of scrum practices in an environment where you need to work on multiple teams are working together to develop a solution or to manage the existing solutions, then definitely we'll have more teams working on that. So there could be more than 50 teams or 50 people or 100 people or 125 people, and there can be multiple agile teams working on. So just replicating the role of product owners, scrum masters on the development team or iteration planning, whatever we call sprint planning, sprint demo, sprint retrospective or product backlog grooming, okay, which happens at a team level, may require a lot more. Replicating is not enough, when you want to scale agile, right? So what we need to do is we have to think of way of aligning the teams to program objective as well as integrate the outcome of these individual teams to inspect and adopt approach so that the team is kept on track to meet the business needs. Okay, so that is what is required. Okay, typically, so that is a kind of challenge. Since you have got a lot of teams, so there should be a way of aligning all these people, all the teams, so that they are working on common program objective. They will take the requirement from a typical program backlog that you can say, and they keep delivering things once in 2 weeks, and how we can integrate, and how we can approach an incremental iterative approach as well as an inspect and adopt approach in such kind of scenario is quite complex. And so that is where the Scaled Agile Framework help us to apply these things, right? So let us see, so what are the typical challenges that we see when we want to apply the scaling agile? Okay, typically, we can say these challenges falls into 2 categories. One is the inherent challenges in the agile approach itself or scrum approach itself, if you want to say. Okay, what are they? This scrum practices, it talks of face-to-face communication, collaborations, it's all about team collaborations, team members collaborations, and all these things, co-location, all those things. Lot of these things are right. Lack of, and not much focus on the documentation, because we focus more and more on the collaboration, the communication part, and even the architecture or overarching way of how to go about doing things is not very clearly articulated on how those challenges are addressed when you scale multiple teams, when the multiple teams are working. So these are the inherent challenges in a typical agile approach itself. Okay, and the other challenges that what we have seen is lot of organizations when they run big programs, will have a hierarchical way of executing those programs. They will have a program management office, okay, a very clear hierarchical structure there. So there is a way of a process defined, and fundings are managed, and there is again a schedule and a planning, centralized strategy of planning happening, and then it is getting percolated to other teams, and they need to again like stick to it and defining milestones and other things. There is a way in which it has been happening. And now once we want to bring the agile approach to this, then they require a lot more changes to be done, right? So that is what we have seen, the challenges of scaling agile. Okay, so to address some of these challenges, Scaled Agile Incorporation has developed a framework, and we call that as SAFE. SAFE stands for Scaled Agile Framework for Enterprise. Okay, so like Scrum is for a team of 7 plus or minus 2, and if you say SAFE is more for an enterprise, or where there are multiple teams working on a big program, or big applications, okay, big systems. Okay, that is what it is. And today the SAFE is slowly becoming the industry standard, and a lot of people have started using them, and a lot of distilled knowledge is there, and you can see a lot of case studies and best practices. And there is a site called scaledagileFramework.com, and this the whole framework is the brainchild of Dean Leffingwell, and of course he has implemented this agile principles and practices and multiple teams. Based on that knowledge, this framework has come, right? So there are plenty of case studies that are available, and definitely companies like John Deere, Intel, Telstra have implemented this framework, and you can see a lot more information. And also, like when the organizations are, when there are a lot of approaches for scaling agile itself, each people will have different opinions, or how we can scale the agile. Scaled Agile Framework has got its own approach. Okay, so approach and methods on how we can apply this, right? So this Scaled Agile Framework approach is articulated in their site, and basically, if you look at it, the SAFE framework has got again principles, values, and lot of practices. A lot of these practices have got their foundations from different frameworks like Scrum, Agile Approach, Kanban, XP. Okay, so they have taken a lot of practices, and from product development flow, and of course the Lean. Okay, so the Lean principles. So the Scaled Agile Framework practices has got the roots from all these methods, and from all these things it has come up and with a framework, right? Okay. Okay. Now let us take a big look at the structure of the Scaled Agile Framework. So if you look at the Scaled Agile Framework, we say that there are 4 levels of the Scaled Agile Framework, right? So the basic construct of the Scaled Agile Framework is the team level, and then when the multiple teams are working together, then we have got a layer called program, and that is where the agile release train gets implemented, and then we have got a value stream level and a portfolio level. So basically these levels have been are not made for controlling, or not to put some kind of hierarchical processes, but it is basically to centralize strategy, but as well as decentralized execution. Okay, so the focus of these 4 levels is more for sake of that purpose, right? Okay, so now if we are in a slide called SAFe 4.0 big picture. If you look at this, it looks quite complicated, but it is not so. Okay, it is a very clearly structured framework. Okay, and we will see different roles, artifacts at all different levels. The lowest level is what we call as the team level, and the team is a basic construct at the team level, and and there are roles like product management, system architect, release train engineers at the program level, and similarly there are different values team roles too. Okay, so the agile release train, whatever we see, is the construct where the multiple teams, agile teams, interact together to deliver the program context or program requirements or program backlog in incremental and iterative approach. Okay, that is what it is. So let us look at what are the typical roles that are there in the program level. So in the program level, we have got roles like product manager. So what is the product manager is all about? The product manager is the content authority at a program. That means he is a person who is responsible for managing the program backlog and prioritization of it, right? So as we work on big programs, and there needs to be some amount of coordination in terms of how that program gets done. Okay, basically I'm talking in terms of architecture. Basically I'm talking in terms of design. How to do it, how to come up with the framework for implementing or coding those implementations or coding those requirements. So there is a role called system architecture, and we call that as a design authority, and that comes at the program level. Okay, so like that, there is a user experience role at the program level, and there are certain roles like release train engineer. And release train engineer is something like a super scrum master. He is the one who coordinates with all the scrum masters at the team level, and he ensures that the program is on track, right? And we have also got the system team. The focus of the system team is all about handling integration, system demos, continuous integration, and system health. And there is a release management team, and whenever the business owner wants the teams to make a beta release or a quick release of the features into business, the release management gets in and coordinates with the other stakeholders of the program and make these releases possible. So what we are saying is, in the SAFe framework or the Scaled Agile framework clearly articulates different roles that are required to channelize the coordination required for multiple teams. So that is what I am saying. Okay, so let me now get into how this is again articulated in a different way, right? So we can see again, as I was saying, there are different roles like the business owners. So at the end of it, the customer is also part of the agile framework, right? So we have got the business owners at the program level, and we have got solution management, value system engineer, solution architects at the value stream level, and there is a customer, right? Customer at the value stream level. And at the portfolio level, we are having program and portfolio management, architects, and the epic owners. Epic owners are nothing but the content authorities at the portfolio level who decides the budget allocations, working with the program portfolio and the senior management guys, what should go in for this year or this quarter. And there is an architect at the portfolio level who provides the overarching guidelines on what kind of platform, what kind of architecture, what kind of interfaces, or what kind of systems that we need to build for the whole product. Okay, so that is how these kind of roles get articulated at the 4 different levels. As I was saying, the 4 levels are basically meant for coordinating. Okay, it is not like a hierarchical purpose of controlling. It is the strategy need to be centralized by a good amount of decentralization happens as far as planning and other things are concerned, planning and executions are concerned at the team level and program level. So that is very clearly articulated in this framework through these 4 levels. Kumar, there seems to be a bit of audio issue. Hey, can you look at that, because some of the participants are putting that in the chat. So Kumar is our infrastructure person who is providing support for this webinar. So I hope he will be able to address them. So I would like to know, okay, so it looks like that some of the people are able to hear very clearly. That means there should be some issues on the people side itself. So that may be the problem, right? Okay. So now let us see, so what is how does the backflow, right? So if you get into backflow at different levels, okay. So here the portfolio, so that means that when I say backlog flow, I am talking in terms of like how the investment themes get structured and gets percolated down. Okay, so how a big functionality for a product gets into multiple fine-grained user stories in the same framework at the team level. So there are events that have been very clearly articulated on how this investment themes gets elaborated to set of epics, and the epics getting further elaborated into set of futures, and the futures into stories, and stories into set of tasks for each teams. So very clear way of articulated, and there are events, and there are I can say activities very clearly put in the SAFe framework for doing all these things, right? So when we say here, so a lot of these things can have what I can call as architectural features, so it may not be of business interest. So when you are developing a big program applications, you need to do a proof of concept. You need to come up with what we call as enablers. Okay, so enablers are more in terms of building technical capability in the product, so that the business functionality can be built over it, and that is what we call as enablers. If you see in this slide, there are different colors. One could be the enablers. Perhaps this could be an enabler, or an architecture epics, or architecture futures, or technical stories over which the light blue or the business functionality is built. And how to go about doing this are very, very clearly articulated in the Scaled Agile Framework, right? Okay, so this is what we call as the backlog flow at all different levels. As I was saying, it's starting from the investment at the portfolio level, gets further percolated down into epics and the program backlog and to team lab backlog. Okay, so that is the way. It has got enablers, it has got epics. Enablers are more of building the technical proof of concept functionality over which the team builds their business functionality. And how these things have been built, what is the kind of status of them, where it is getting built up, all these things are tracked through what we call as Kanban approach. So there is a Kanban way of tracking these things, okay, and you have got a Kanban board at the program level, at the value stream level, at the portfolio level, which gives visibility on all these backlogs at abstraction, how these things are getting built at different levels. Okay, so that is what it is. So that is how the backlog implementation happens. Okay, so now let us, after understanding how this backlog is developed, the requirements and the scope for the project is developed. Now let us try to see how this gets delivered. Okay, as we see in Scrum, this gets delivered through sprints, right? Whereas in SAFe or Scaled Agile Framework, the construct that is used for delivering these program backlogs in an incremental iterative approach is through what we call as Agile Release Train. Agile Release Train is a construct in the Scaled Agile Framework, and it is for a program. Okay, so where multiple teams are getting involved. So just as Scrum standardizes practices at team level, SAFe standardizes practices at program and portfolio levels. Okay, so SAFe is slowly getting the mind share across the enterprises as the industry standard for scaling agile. And one of the reasons I can say the SAFe is becoming popular is that it tackles the tough issues of architecture, integration, funding, and governance that are big challenges when you start involving multiple teams in big programs. Okay, so the Scaled Agile Framework, addresses some of the challenges of governance, some of the challenges of funding, integration, architecture, and all those things. So that is why the SAFe is becoming more popular. Okay, so now let us see how this Scaled Agile Framework gets involved in implementation. So here at a program level, we talk, as I was saying, multiple teams. So typically a agile release train is supposed to have about a max of 50 to 125 people. So that means to say that, okay, so about 5 to 10 agile teams, okay, working together to deliver a program. Suppose there could be a case where an organization is working on with 500 people. Then how do we apply this? So then we will have multiple agile release trains. Okay, so each having a team of about 50 to 125 people. That is how one needs to scale. So that means I will have multiple agile release trains, and all these agile release train alignment in terms of what they do and how, and synchronization of their outcomes is done through the value stream level. So we call that as value stream engineer, and there is solution architects and solution management teams are there for managing such kind of big programs where you have got more than one agile release train. Okay, so all these people again, they are all aligned to a program vision, and architectural guidelines at the program level is worked out, and then then they will start execution, right? So if you look at it, the agile release train basically takes a systemic view. It brings together the people we need to deliver large amounts of value. So that can include business guys, that can include product management group, that can include architects, system engineers, and the program stakeholders, hardware, software teams, testing team, all those guys, right? All those people will be involved. Okay, so it is more like a virtual team, virtual train. Okay, what I mean here is the concept is all people, different teams creating a virtual team and driving it. Okay, so that is what it is, and what we are said is, these art synchronizes their program. How do they do it? They do it through what we call as program increment planning. So when once the agile train starts working on a big program for a 3 months program, a 3 months program where multiple 5 to 10 agile teams are working, the first thing that they do is they do what we call as program increment planning. This is like a sprint planning. You know, when you start a sprint, you do a sprint planning for a scrum, right? Like that, there will be a program incremental planning. The purpose of program increment planning is to meet all the agile teams. Even if there are 10 teams, all the 100 people need to meet face to face most of the time. You know, if there are if it is a large organization, then you need to find out workarounds for this through your video conference and other things. Otherwise, the suggested method is to have a face-to-face meeting. Okay, so here in the program increment planning is a 2-day event. The management sets the mission with minimal possible constraints, and the requirements and the design emerge. The business owners either add features depending upon the capacity of the program teams or take out features to manage the scope. The important stakeholders, it could be business owners or it could be the architects, system guys, or release guys. They take decisions, okay, and decisions are accelerated in a day. So it is not like, you want to take some decision, the architect, you send a mail and wait for the response, it doesn't happen like that, because the program increment, since all the stakeholders are available there, if decision need to be made, they will make the decision there, most of the decisions, and they will also identify what kind of risks are there, how to mitigate those risks, and some of these that cannot be mitigated, people are identified to own the risks and address the challenges. The program increment planning is not only just identifying what each team needs to do in next 3 months, but also to have a face-to-face meeting so that all these other key issues get resolved. And once after the program increment, the team starts developing, right? The team starts executing and the program objectives are defined, and based on the program objectives, the team defines their own team objectives. Now, if 10 teams are involved, they will come up with the team objective, or they will take respective features that they need to develop, and they start using their own Scrum approach for delivering things in 2 weeks iteration. And there is a system team which keeps on integrating the outputs of all these teams involved and make what we call as a system demo. So, for example, if individual agile teams are delivering alternate weeks, like 2nd week, 4th week, 6th week, some outputs of the user story that they have committed, then the system takes outcomes of each of these teams and integrate it and make system demo to the program stakeholders on 3rd Friday, 5th Friday, and 7th Friday, perhaps with a 1-week delay. This is how the demo happens. Okay. So this is how the agile team starts and delivering the incremental and iterative approach, and they develop on cadence. As I was saying, a program has got a very clear 2 weeks cadence most of the time, and all the teams follow the same cadence so that they all start their planning and demo in a 2 weeks time frame, and and they keep delivering, and then the system demo happens, and then we at the end of the program, after whatever you can call a 5th increment, there is one separate sprint called inspect and adopt, where the outcomes of the last 5 sprints are integrated, and there is a big demo made, and they showcase the program output to the different stakeholders. Okay, that is how it happens. So in between, if the business has would like to do a release, a prototype release to a particular client, or would like to go ahead with that, then a release management jumps in and works with the different stakeholders at the program level, and the architects and the agile teams, and then they can make a release, right? So these are all planned during the program increment planning. PI planning is what we call. So the development in the agile release stage happens on cadence, but if required, one can make a delivery on demand. So that is what is all this about, right? So at the end of this demo inspect and adapt sprint, so all people again meet and they look at how those it's more like a retrospective and review, right? In a typical Scrum ceremonies, right? So now we are talking in terms of a program demo and program retrospective, what went well, what perhaps we could have been done better. So do a root cause analysis for some of the points, and if there are some technical issues of architecture issues that get resolved, and people identified non-functional requirements here, any other challenges that comes in gets addressed, okay, and also the plan for the next program increment. So this repeats. So that is how typically the Scaled Agile Framework having multiple teams work, right? So that is what we have seen so far, right? So now, after getting the insight of the framework, let us see if we want to adopt this approach in the organization to work on a large program or on a new program. It could be our existing managing set of big applications, okay, big systems. How can we go about doing this? What should be the typical roadmap? What are the steps 1 and 2, 3 that we need to do? And that is the next part of the webinar that I will be focusing on. Okay, so the implementation roadmap that we are discussing in the following slides is based on the successful implementation of framework in many enterprises and large programs. So there are many case studies. The companies using SAFE or the Scaled Agile Framework has written all these case studies with their data, and the Scaled Agile Incorporated had published them in the site. And if you go to site, we can see more than 20 case studies on the SAFE website of how the Scaled Agile Framework has implemented. In fact, the Scaled Agile Incorporation has, based on these case studies and their own experiences of implementing the SAFE framework, has come out with implementing SAFE 1, 2, 3 model. Okay, so this SAFE 1, 2, 3 model basically says, if you want to apply the SAFE framework, how to go about doing things. So if you look at even applying the Scrum approach, and at the end of it, it's not easy, right? Because it is all about change management. It is a new way of working, especially for the traditional waterfall methods. It is all about the management making commitment and people taking the ownership, and it is all about self-organizing cross-functional teams, right? So even at a small team itself, we have got a lot of challenges. Okay, if you see the scope, challenges, and the impact of the Scaled Agile Framework, you can imagine it is much more difficult. Okay, it is not easy. So definitely you require a much more systematic and disciplined way of how to organize the teams, how to define roles, how to define methods, approach, how these people need to come together, how to define the Scrum of Scrums for product owners, Scrum of Scrum for Scrum Masters, and how does the system team need to take the outputs of each teams. It is not easy, right? So basically, the way in which the implementation roadmap is, once the program backlog or the portfolio backlog is ready, then we need to create an implementation plan. What do you mean by implementation plan? It is creating the agile teams, defining roles, okay, like product owner, Scrum Master, development team at the team level. Then defining the roles at program level, roles at values team level. If you are talking of 50 to 125 people team, about 5 to 10 agile teams, then most of the implementation that what we have seen, especially in India, stick to this. So we need to define roles at the program level. So come up with the implementation plan, define the scope for the program backlog. Then launch agile release train. So where a lot of people will be getting involved now. So I've got leaders, managers, executives. You will also have a product management group, system architects, your own implementers, coders, developers, tech leads, testers, all those people will be there. And we need to ensure how the agile release train need to work, right? So we need to train the team, we need to train implementers, we also need to train key stakeholders. Now, unless we train the business owners, unless we train the product management group, so the success of SAFe is very less. So this we have seen even in the implementing Scrum practices in a small team itself. Unless all the people have had a buy-in for the approach, it doesn't succeed, right? So let us see what is this SAFe one implementation approach 1, 2, 3. In fact, as I was saying, this model is based on lots of scaled agile implementation case studies and the experience, right? So the first is to train the lean agile change agents. What do you mean by lean agile change agents? If you want to implement the lean agile mindset across the big program, multiple teams that are involved, definitely you require someone to need to coordinate. So I think I know some of you guys must have worked in a CMMI environment, right? So which came up about 2 decades back, 2.5 decades back. Before that, there was no group like a CPG, Software Engineering Process Group. So they created a CPG and SQA. So basically, what are they? They were called as change agent to implement the model in the organization. So like that, the Scaled Agile Framework says that if you want to successfully implement the Scaled Agile Framework for an enterprise or a big program, then you require change agents. So you have to create those change agents through a set of training, and they call that a SAFe program consultant. And once you create such kind of change agents, so they are the people who lead the lean agile transformation using SAFe. Okay. So after that, you need to again involve a lot of executives, managers. You need to tell them what are the SAFe principles, what do you mean by lean agile mindset, what does SAFe focus on, how to coordinate, what do you mean by tracking the program implementation through Kanban. You need to build awareness on the SAFe framework itself, okay, and the roles. And afterwards, you also need to train the implementers. When I say implementers, developers at the lowest level, right? So we need to train on the Scaled Agile Framework because their role may differ a little bit when once they are interacting with multiple teams. So typically we need to train the executives, we need to train agents and all those stuff, right? So that is what is required. And these are what I call as, there are a lot of trainings and certifications available to train these change agents, and we call that as SPC4 certifications. If you want to train executives and managers and leaders, there is a training called Leading SAFe or a SAFe Agilist certification. And then once the team starts launching the Agile release train and they are involved in day-to-day program execution using same framework, they need to be trained as SAFe for teams. So these are the different certifications and training that are available. This is basically to build awareness. Now I'm just going through, giving a little bit more details on what this training is all about, right? So this slide talks in terms of the SPC4 certification that is required. So the Scaled Agile Framework suggests that if you are launching a program or are launching an Agile release train, there should be an internal agent. Okay. Sometimes the internal change agent may not be sufficient, but it is definitely mandatory. So one should use the combination of both internal and external change agents, mentors, coaches to implement SAFe to start with. Then once the organization gets up to maturity, then perhaps you can run with your internal change agents. So the SAFe SPC4 certification is more for creating such kind of change agents, and they are the guys who lead the adoption of Scaled Agile Framework and launch Agile release trains. Okay, so this has got an exam which has to be taken in one sitting. Duration is for 2 hours, and it is a 4 days training. And when once you clear this exam, the participants are given SPC4 certification. And this is the most important certification. This is where we are training the key stakeholders, executive managers and leaders, on what is that they are supposed to do for successful implementation of SAFe in their programs. It is basically to build what I call as Lean Agile mindset in the key stakeholders in the organization to get their buy-in. Okay, so to make them aware of how does the SAFe events work. What do you mean by program increment planning? And what is its importance? Why people should participate there? Why it is so important to have a face-to-face meeting, or at least on the video conference if people are distributed across multiple geos. So this training provides, and it's a 9-module, and basically, so these people are the one who are key stakeholders, that they take the responsibility for the implementation of success. Focus is to get the insights and the structure of same framework, practices, roles, activities, and artifacts. Okay, so that is what is called as leading SAFe agility. So now we are talking in terms of SAFe for teams, right? Teams were part of agile release trains, as I was saying. So this is again a 2-day training, and training can be given by the change agent SPC4. This is to learn how to become agile teams, build their backlog, plan and execute iterations using Scrum, Kanban, XP. Learn about how they need to interact with the agile other teams, how to integrate their work with the other teams on the train. And this is again a 2-day training, and exam fee is about $100. And when once the training is done, and this is common for most of these trainings, right? Then they need to take within 1 month the exam, and once you pass, you will get what we call as SP certification, like SCA certification. Okay. Again, as I was saying, the lead SAFe, and the difference, if you ask me, between the lead SAFe and the SAFe for team certification, leading SAFe is more for the executives, managers to understand the framework. Okay, so it is. I can say it's for all managers, QA leads, design leads, architects, delivery managers, whatever I can call, guys who need to understand, who are very, very important key guys, who need to understand how to work in Lean Agile approach, how to use Kanban method, how to use Scrum, XP practices for implementing SAFe. Whereas the SAFe for teams is more a nut and bolts for the guys who are on the ground, for a developer, for a Java developer, or for a developer, or a tester. Okay, so configuration manager you can call. So guys who are involved in a day-to-day activity. So that is the key difference for these two certifications. And again, there are different, as I say, specialist roles that are there, right? So these roles are for the prospective product owners, prospective scrum masters, prospective release train engineers. Okay, so naturally in all these teams there will be a release train engineer. So there is a product manager, right? So, and the scrum master. So the typical certified scrum master in CSM tells how to work as an individual team. When we talk here in terms of the SAFe Scrum Master SSM, this certification provides you how a Scrum Master need to work in a SAFe environment, Scaled Agile environment. Okay. Similarly, the SAFe PMPO or the SAFe Advanced Scrum Master. Okay. So it is very, very important to train these specialist roles. So the SAFe Scrum Master provides orientation to the role of Scrum Master in the SAFe environment. Similarly, the SAFe Product Manager and a Product Owner training provides orientation of Product Manager, business owners. Right. So all those guys on how to work in the safe environment. Safe advanced Scrum Master, orienting Scrum Master for their leadership role in facilitating agile teams, programs, enterprise success in the safe implementation. So these are the trainings that are required. And once you train these participants, right, then perhaps your SPC4, same safe program consultant, internal change agent, and external change agent provide required coaching. Okay, so they help in terms of ensuring how the a program backlog is ready for a release, right? Is it ready at a level of future that can be started? Is it agile ART readiness, program backlog refinement, how to conduct program increment workshop, how to come up with program objectives, how to create a program dashboard, how to come up with governance, how to come up with uh, right, how to come up with planning, conducting, how to conduct a inspect and adopt workshop, and how to apply Kanban approach to facilitate flow, right? So those are the things that are required when once the people have started, and the after training you need to provide coaching to ensure that people start implementing what is that they have learned, right? So QAI has got a agile COE as what we say, and we have trained thousands of people on agile. Similarly, we are training a lot of people nowadays on the Scaled Agile Framework. We also provide coaches, agile coaches, and safe program consultants in helping the planning of program increment, backlog grooming of effects, conduct PI planning, PI demos, program dashboards. So if required, if an organization is looking for to know what is this, what are the challenges, or what is the Scaled Agile Framework is all about, we also provide a 2 hours workshop for executives, managers, and key stakeholders on why, what, and how of safe with some case studies. Okay, so this is how we help, and that is where I would like to end this webinar. Now I am open. I'm ready to take any questions. So if you have got any questions, so I will take a pause. As I was saying, the webinar is basically to give a oversight or an insight in terms of what the Scaled Agile Framework is all about, and what are the different levels, what are the different roles are there, how to come up with the requirements, go for a program, and how we can execute, and how to implement. If one is looking for its implementation, how we can implement, what are the typical steps that are required, training, certification, coaching. Okay. So if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat box. We can just take it up. Which project management tool can be used? Of course. So there are, as you know, Agile, Jira, and the Rally. They have got add-on modules when you want to apply SAFe. So especially Rally, I've seen a good add-on if you want to apply SAFe framework for that. And similarly, tool like Swift Kanban, Agile, Jira, all those things can be used. So I wanted to ask, there are some things, which people are not able to hear. So I hope the audio was good for all the pod. I am sure a lot of people must have. There was no issue with about 90% of the guys is what I can say, right? Okay. So any questions on the webinar content? I'm wondering even now people want to join. Yeah, let me tell you. No, see, I think as you rightly said, SAFe has got a lot of processes put in, right? So if you are trying to apply agile approach for a big team, okay. So when I say big team, a team of about 100 people, then definitely you require some amount of bureaucracy. There is no doubt about it. Okay, because you need some amount of alignment, you need some amount of synchronization, especially if you are trying to, if each of the team is trying to develop, right, um, in an incremental iterative approach. Yes, okay. But if you are working with a two or three agile teams, perhaps the same framework may be a overhead. Okay, I'm telling you, you can resolve through scum of scums. But if you have got definitely a large team of 50 plus, definitely the scaled agile framework roles are going to help. The event like program increment planning, system depots, the team of system team, release team, DevOps teams, all those things are going to help. There is no doubt, no doubt about it. Okay, the key difference, of approach in a scaled agile framework versus the waterfall is we are talking in terms of system demo happening, right? System demo has to happen every 2 weeks, right? So it is nothing but the integration of the individual teams' outputs, okay? So whereas in a waterfall it doesn't happen, right? So that is the key difference. As I was saying, there's a question that is coming up. We are having a lot of delivery is lost. At the end of it, whether it is Scrum, Agile approach, it is all about the change management, change of culture. Okay, so when it is difficult to implement the change of culture in a organization which is traditional approach, then definitely SAFe is very difficult, because here the focus is all about working together as a team. It is about ownership, team mooning. It is not it is not about hiding information. It is not about not sharing. If you have got a culture issue of that, definitely this is going to have a lot of impact. This is going to affect. That is where there is a question which is talking in terms of um, technical debt, right? So that is where the scaled agile framework has come up with a great architectural runway approach. Okay, where we are talking in terms of enablers. Okay, so you need to, again, like when you are coming up with the program backlog, when you are refining the program backlog, the system architect team working with the tech leads of the product, tech leads of the agile team need to come up with the enablers that are required for building business functionality for the program. That needs to be planned upfront. In fact, the enablers for the next program needs to be built as a part of the N-1 program, right? So basically we say that the features consume enablers. So enablers are built first, and then over it we build the business functionality. So the framework provides a clear guidelines, okay, guidelines about doing this. So it may sound bureaucracy, but I don't think it is. So definitely some amount of discipline is required when you are working with big teams. That is what the Scaled Agile framework is bringing it. As I was saying, if you have got a 20 or 25 people team, then perhaps implementing scaled agile framework, you may feel a good amount of overhead of process or bureaucracy, but definitely if you are trying to implement this framework over a large 50 to 125 people, definitely it is required. Otherwise, you will be having a lot of issues in terms of technical debt and other things. I don't think there is a question which is coming up which any specific consideration if you go for CMMI dev. Okay, so we have seen as QI, we have helped a lot of clients in integrating CMMI with Scrum or Agile approach itself, right? So if you are applying SAFe, then implementation of CMMI dev is much more easier because the SAFe is more prescriptive than the individual Agile Scrum implementation. So I don't see much issue of compliance to CMMI dev model. Okay, so when I say it is well defined and prescriptive, what I mean is it is like how these product owners, scrum masters need to coordinate. Okay, so that is what I mean. It is not like a process well defined. When I say it is not about the way in which we work in a traditional method of coming up with a design document and then only you can start coding in implementation. No, the team collaboration, it is all about how to prioritize. It's all about working in lean agile mindset. So it is see if you just have some multiple teams working and if each one has got their own sprint duration, okay, then how do you coordinate? So when I say defined prescriptive, it says that if you are working in 10 teams, all the 10 teams need to have a similar duration, okay, so that their outcomes and outputs can be integrated. When I say it is defined and prescriptive, this is what I mean. Okay, there are cases in out of 10 agile teams, then one or two may be following waterfall. Even then, we can apply SAFe framework where the integration may happen at the time of program level for those two teams. Okay, if you are working with 10 agile teams, you either having or adopted the Scrum approach where they're delivering in 2 weeks, then one other two waterfall teams that are delivering in a 10-week program. Yes, that's fine. But there is an amount of risk that happens there. So when I say prescriptive or defined, this is what I mean. The coordination and all those things. Nothing else. Yeah. Let me tell you that I'm not here. I think there is one thing, I think some Deepak is just talking in terms of abusive of waterfall. I am not a protagonist or, advice of saying that scaled agile framework is great. I'm here to tell like what is the scaled agile framework and structure, especially if you want to scale agile. Okay, if you are working with multiple agile teams and you want to scale agile, then the scaled agile framework helps. Similarly, there are other scaled agile framework like LESS, right? So large enterprise scaling Scrum, and there is discipline agile delivery. So what we saw in this webinar was more about how to implement this scaled agile framework, one flavor of scaling agile. That is what it is. It is nothing to do with saying that waterfall approach is bad or this approach is good or something like that. No, it is not that. The approach is more in terms of, if one is looking to scale agile for multiple teams, definitely there will be multiple challenges. How the scaled agile framework helps in addressing some of those challenges is what we are talking. That is correct. So I think again, Deepak, the debate, I think we can take a lot of offline. I can share my mobile number 984506248 We can have a discussion on this. I don't mind. As you rightly said, agile as a concept is not meant for the large program. The Scaled Agile Framework has refined some of these agile manifesto and agile principles when it wants to apply it for the large teams. Okay, the Scaled Agile Framework also has come up. So again, let me tell you. Okay, this is not a I can or a one solution for all. This is an approach where it provides some amount of guidelines